And if you are thinking about college planning for your kids, or if you are in high school and you're thinking about college planning, you have come to the right place. Welcome. My name is Anjali Maazel. I'm a former Princeton University interviewer, TED Talk speaker, and college admissions expert. I am also the very proud mom of a thriving 23-year-old now in grad school. And at Anja Education Consultants, the company that I founded, I've helped hundreds of students get into their top perfect match colleges, including Yale and Stanford, Johns Hopkins and Vanderbilt, and Swarthmore and UT Austin, to name a few. As a Princeton University interviewer, I learned what colleges are looking for in a student and how an applicant can stand out from the crowd. And as a parent, I learned how important it is to teach our kids that college is just one step in creating a life of purpose. It's not a destination or an end in itself. So I am looking forward to hearing from you and to find out which questions you're asking, what you are concerned about in college planning. So please put those questions in the Q&A and make sure that I have the grades that your kids are in. So Grace has just shared with me the poll. The majority of students are in 11th grade, I see here, 48%. We've got 41% of 12th grade students, 15% of 10th grade with us today, and 1% of 9th grade students. So yes, it would be great, Kathy, I see your question about attending university in Europe, and I do have a lot of experience helping students apply to schools in Europe. So do connect with me. This is not going to be something I'll be able to cover today, but I will be very happy to talk to you, Kathy. And then going forward, yes, Grace just put that in the chat. Please put your questions in the Q&A window and we will get to them. If we don't get to them, then you can connect with me. And I will be offering anyway a free 30-minute strategy session if you sign up today. So you'll have ample opportunity to do that. Grace, if you could also put the link to sign up for not only for that free strategy session, but also for the discount that I'm going to be offering to attendees of this meeting. So let's get right into the heart of the matter. What does my background as a former Princeton University interviewer, TED Talk speaker, college admissions expert, and mom of a thriving 23-year-old, what does all of that, what can all of that mean for you? Well, this is what I'd like you to envision. It's October 15th of your students or your own senior year in high school. And because this student has submitted 10 high-quality applications early, they have their first acceptances rolling in. They've gotten the scholarship that you were hoping for, and now you have the funds, the time, and the peace of mind to plan the winter break vacation that you've been fantasizing about for a couple of years. And what's going through your mind is nothing to do with college. It has to do with mountain or beach, domestic or international. What kind of a vacation is it going to be? And on the student side, what are they thinking about on this October 15th when all the applications have been sent in way early and a very high quality? Instead of being close to burnout by juggling applications and schoolwork and extracurriculars and other responsibilities, instead of dreading winter break because they'll be cramming their applications and submitting essays that may not be of the quality that they'd like, your teen is now free to pursue the academic and extracurricular activities that mean the most to them. And additionally, the first semester senior year grades are super important. So because they are often looked at by admissions, so the student will have the energy and the time to perform really well in school instead of being exhausted trying to do everything at the same time. Now, timing is key. That's true. Earlier is better. So our first tip for outstanding applications is focus on the timeline. When applications open, not when they close. When applications open, generally is August 1st, between junior and senior year, and when they close is generally December to January of that senior year. Now, I know there are a lot of seniors here and a lot of parents of seniors. I don't want you to worry. Even though I'm presenting what is optimal, there is a way to streamline the process, even in 12th grade. So I will be very happy to connect with you for 12th grade parents so that I can explain that more in detail. Today's talk is really geared more for 11th graders and younger. However, you still will get tips that you'll be able to apply. Now, why is it important to submit these applications early? It's not a question only of trying to make that senior year as enjoyable as possible. It's also because many colleges are operating on a rolling admissions basis. And that's whether they say it explicitly on their website or not. They are doing that. They are allocating their scholarships, they are allocating their spots in the freshman class on a first come, first served basis. Some of them, of course, will wait until the very end, until the deadline, and then we'll read all the applications together. But more and more colleges, especially during COVID, with the added pressure that they feel to fill their freshman classes, they are doing this. So this is a way to help you put all the odds, stack all the odds in your favor. Now, how do you get ready to submit those standout applications, and preferably on the timeline that I mentioned? So toward the end of this webinar, I'm going to share with you the blueprint that I've developed over many, many years in this field. But first, before we get there, I'd like to introduce you to the steps to get to that blueprint through 3 case studies with 1 tip for each case study that we're going to go through. So basically, we will start with Tony's story. So let's look first of all. Tony was a student that I worked with a couple of years ago who came to me in his sophomore year, and he said to me, I'm very good in math. Everybody tells me I should be an engineer, but I really am not sure. And when he said that to me, he was kind of slumping in his chair, and I could tell from his body language he was really not very into this idea. Now, he then kind of apologetically said to me, and I also make art. So when I looked at his art, I saw he had a singular talent. So what I did is connected him to a local art mentor who guided him. I got him to apply and be admitted to the Rhode Island School of Design for the summer between his junior and senior year. And at the end of those experiences, he came back to me and he said, I am so excited. I know how I'm going to combine my talent in math with my love of art. I'm going to go into architecture. So by the end of this process, he was able to put together a portfolio, and he had strong stats. Let's be clear about that. He had a 4.0 average and very high SAT scores, plus this portfolio. So what all of this kind of put together got him was, first of all, a $100,000 scholarship to Tulane, which he turned down. And he got in, though, to his first choice school, which was Rice. So now he's an architecture school at Rice University. Now, by making the right choices for those extracurriculars leading up to that junior year summer when he was going to have to apply, he found out, what he wanted to major in. And then we could come up with the perfect match colleges for him to apply to. Now, what was the benefit of this? It was career and major planning guidance early in the process, which meant that it saved his parents time and money, because if he'd, let's say, gone into engineering and switched majors in a year, you know, it might have taken him an extra year to graduate. And also, would he have been happy? You know, I don't think so, given where he was coming from. So the second tip I have for you associated with this story is, instead of asking your teen, or if you were a student, instead of asking yourself, what do you want to be when you grow up? A more useful question is, what lights me up? What lights your student up? And what problems in the world does your student see that they might want to solve? Now, it's not always about solving problems directly. For anybody in the arts, it can be about using art to benefit society in some way. For people in business, again, it can be seeing a need in the market and filling that need. So the question needs to be adapted carefully to the different fields that students might be interested in going in. The important point here is to find the sweet spot between passion and aptitude, between what they love and what they're good at. Now, the choice of extracurriculars and summer for the coming year, for juniors especially, is going to be important. And this is one area where expert guidance can really make a difference. So now let's look at another student I worked with, Ellen. So in Ellen's case, she was quite different from Tony. She came to me in her sophomore year, and she had a B average. She was very interested in business, and what ended up happening is she's now a business major at Emory University in Atlanta. That was her first choice school. But the question was, how are we going to present her application, having the average that she had, and the fact that she had just discovered her interest in business. So her resume didn't completely reflect, or it wasn't all that kind of substantial. So this is how we worked on the issue, which was, we focused on telling her story around two aspects. First of all, it was an improvement in GPA over the 3 years of high school so far, so over between 9th and 11th grade. She had improved her GPA, even though it wasn't necessarily at the level she had wanted it to be, but there was a progress. And then the second aspect was that even though she had this progress, at the same time, the rigor of her classes kept improving. So she had an uptick in GPA, the rigor of her classes kept improving, and third point, she was able to combine her extracurricular experience in yearbook with an internship that she did over the summer in a startup incubator. And by connecting how her extracurricular experience in the yearbook gave her managerial skills, gave her communication skills, a lot of transferable skills that she would then be able to use in a business setting. By combining that with her internship experience at the startup incubator and talking about the projects she did, she was able to weave together her talents and her experience to write a compelling story, a compelling application. Now, what did this get her? Apart from the admission to Emory, which was her first choice, it also got her 12 scholarship offers, ranging from $20,000 to $100,000. So the tip for you here is to see your child, if you're the parent or if you're the student, to see your 3-year journey from 9th through 11th grades as a story. How do those academic interests and extracurricular activities fit together? How can all those threads be combined to reveal who you are? Now, I break this tip down into 2 steps. First of all, I recommend that students take an interest and strengths assessment. If you end up working with me, I will be happy to give that to you to really hone in on that sweet spot between interest and aptitude, or between interest and ability. And second of all, to have a brainstorming session. It's all about story, about weaving these interests together and tying them in to who you really are, to your authentic self. Now, you'll see authentic self on a lot of websites, of college admissions websites, and you might think, oh my gosh, another buzzword, right? Authentic self. Well, what does that really mean? Actually, this can be an opportunity for students to really ask themselves, what do I really care about? What really matters to me? How am I going to tell colleges what I have to offer, what it is that is the most compelling thing for me, that excites me the most, that lights me up? These are the kinds of questions that if you really try to connect, have the student connect with their authentic self, this can yield some fantastic essays, which then, of course, enhance the application as a whole. So the question, the benefit here for this approach is in optimized admission results, financial savings through scholarships, again, and the peace of mind of knowing that this application was done in a way that truly aligns the student with what they care about the most. So the third and final story I want to tell you is about a student called Grace, who I worked with last year, and they actually were enthusiastic about the results. Grace obtained a $199,000 scholarship to her second choice school, and she obtained an $80,000 scholarship to her first choice school, which was Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts. She has a very strong vocal talent, but there was a lot more to it than just the video of the audition. There was the quality of the essays, and again, weaving that story together. Most importantly, there was an aspect of the testing, which after this 1-minute video that I'm going to share with you, because it's Grace and her mom Maria telling you about their experience, after that 1-minute video, I will give you the tip about testing that has to do with this. So I will just play that, and I hope you can see it clearly.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Sorensen and I'm a long-term client of Miss Anjali. We began working my freshman year. Right away she got to know my family, my passions, and what I saw myself doing beyond just the years of college.
I have to agree. I'm Maria and I'm Grace's mom. And I would have to say the best thing about Anjali and working with her is that she's super organized. She uses a lot of technological tools that keep us organized with calendars and scheduling. What I loved is that she made Grace responsible for all of it. So selfishly, I didn't have to do all of that. And I actually love that she made her become very independent and very responsible for her learning and for her goals and reaching them. We love her dearly, and
Absolutely.
We are very grateful for her because she goes far beyond just academic learning and growth.
And I'm so proud to say and so thankful to be able to say that in these 4 years, thanks to her help with my applications, I was able to get a $20,000 scholarship to my top pick school, which is California Institute of the Arts, also known as Cal Arts. So thank you, Miss Anjali, for everything that you've done for me. We love you so much, and we can't wait to see what other lives you get to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. So that one where she said 20,000, that was 20,000 a year. So 20,000 a year. So that comes out to 80,000 for the full 4 years at Cal Arts. Now, one thing she did not mention is that the ACT versus SAT, which are the two standardized tests that colleges have used to evaluate college readiness, that we had to be very strategic about this because I gave her an SAT versus ACT diagnostic test, which if you end up working with me, I can give you, to determine which of those two tests she would be most, or you would be most likely to score higher on. They're very different tests, they measure different things. So in the end, with Grace, she did not score very high on either of them. And because she was very committed to her extracurriculars, and she had a very tight schedule, we decided that in the landscape of the test optional colleges, it was more to her advantage to focus on her extracurriculars and on her academics and to let go of the testing and test prep. So in her case, she did not submit scores. Now, I want in this last tip, or the last tip that is associated to a story, because I have other tips at the end of the webinar for you, a lot more. But the last one associated to this story is that it's not just about being strategic with the testing. How are you strategic with the testing? If you or your student has scored at the top or higher than 50th percentile of the students admitted the previous year or two, then it's generally a good idea to submit the scores. If they are at the bottom of that 50th percentile or below, then it's generally speaking not a good idea to submit them. However, it goes way beyond just this 50th percentile in terms of strategy. There are some colleges that have been traditionally test optional, and this is way before COVID imposed the test optional situation on colleges because of canceling test dates and also because of some of the technical glitches that students were having at the test sites. So colleges that have been traditionally test optional are much more likely to understand how to view a student's application holistically. So this is a big advantage for students, because some of the colleges, that have adopted test optional, where they will look at tests if you send them, but if you don't send them, they won't look at tests, which is what test optional means. In that experience, this recent COVID-based testing policy, they're not used to evaluating students without the scores. So it is to a student's advantage to be looking at these traditionally test optional schools like Smith College, for example, in Massachusetts. NYU, New York University, has been traditionally, for quite a while now, test flexible, which means that a student can submit AP scores instead of SAT scores. They can also, there are a variety of different ways that NYU evaluates students. So that can be a very good solution as well. And then the University of California, UCLA, UC Riverside, UC San Diego, etc., have become test blind. That means if you send a score, they won't even look at it. So what I'm trying to say is, for students who have more difficulty with testing, there are a lot of options, and it doesn't just boil down to the statistics. It's a lot more subtle than that. For students who are good test takers, if you guys decide to work with me, I will match you with top testing prep tutors that I hand select from Princeton, who are not only very experienced tutors, but also who have scored very high themselves, and I match the personality, so of the student to the tutor. So there are a lot of different options, and it's a question of making sure that you choose the one that is best suited to you or to your student. So just one very clear thing, be very clear on this. The SAT and the ACT are not aptitude tests. They're called aptitude tests, they are not. They measure how much test prep the student has actually done. Now, some students are able to do the test prep on their own. That's great. Most students find that the accountability of having a tutor or a group is very, very helpful. Okay, so now you might be wondering, how do all these pieces of the application process fit together, and when should your child be doing what? So how are you going to make sure that you have standout applications and gain admission to your perfect match colleges? So over the years, I have developed a blueprint of what to do and when, and I want to share that with you. I want to show you how you can access it. And after that, after this section on this blueprint and how I work with students, I will be sharing the final kind of tips for making sure that these applications are memorable and for getting best fit college lists or perfect match college lists. So please stick around until the end of the webinar. Now, I will be sharing this blueprint through how I work with students. Grace, can you be sure that in the chat they have the they definitely have the link. Maybe you could paste it again. Yeah, I see that now. I think you've pasted it. Yes. So if you sign up today for a 30-minute one-on-one individual strategy session, you will get a significant discount on this approach that I'm going to be sharing in these packages. So I hope that you can see this clearly. So for 11th to 12th grade students, and that is for the 2 years, although whether we start in 11th or 12th grades, the package is the same, the services are the same. What changes is the amount of time the students have to actually accomplish these tasks. So it is a 2-year process. And I have 2 approaches. There's 2 blueprints for this. One of them is the comprehensive package for 11th and 12th grade students. We've got weekly meetings in 11th grade spring and summer before 12th, and monthly at all other times. If I start working with 12th grade students, then it would be weekly meetings, and sometimes more if needed, based on what to accomplish the next steps. We give them a cutting-edge strengths assessment and interest assessment. They're the most in-depth tests available. And then I look at very carefully at those transcripts, because that analysis of the transcript helps in telling the story, like we saw with Ellen. I also give tutoring recommendations when necessary. We want to address all the gaps. So if you look at this process, you'll see this is a blueprint that that can work extremely effectively. I also look at the choice of curriculum and course selection in the years of high school. So that would be for 11th grade and even 12th grade. And making sure that those summer activities and those school year activities really align with a student, who they are, what they want, or if they don't know, then how to explore that. It's extremely important because, again, that fits into story, and story is a vital part of a successful application. Then I also help students with communication, all the communication around applying to college. So that includes crafting an excellent resume, preparing for the interviews. Many colleges do offer interviews. Emailing the college counselors, who are the admission counselors, dedicated to you, because each region usually is assigned a certain admission counselor. So getting to know them and connecting with them can be extremely valuable in this process. And then a social media kind of crash course on how to connect with colleges, including creating a LinkedIn profile. You'd be surprised how many high school students now have a LinkedIn profile and how useful it can be to connect with professors and admissions. And then crafting the best fit college list, which is also the perfect match college list. We don't just look at data. We don't just look at databases. We look at preferences, student preferences, also financial fit for the family, to make sure that those colleges are really where that student is going to thrive and do their best work. And then we already mentioned the diagnostic for the SAT and the ACT. This particular package includes application to 10 colleges. We find the important thing is to craft a balanced college list between likely, target, reach, and far reach schools. So this college list is super important. And then the applications, yes, including 10 colleges, that includes all essays, including honors essays, scholarship essays, everything. And then the outstanding essays. So we work with students from brainstorming all the way through the polished final draft, making sure that those essays are in the student's voice. But an essay, these essays are very different from the essays that students work on in high school, which are very academic. This is very personal, and it requires a certain kind of touch. So we've had a great success with helping students with essays. And by the way, that includes all of them, honors and any kind of summer programs, any competition essays, etc. And then waitlist and scholarship negotiation, those are two elements that are included as well, because this again is part of that blueprint. We're talking about blueprint for succeeding in acing college admissions. How you deal with waitlist is important because there are strategies that help students. I've had very, very good experience with that, helping students get off the waitlist. And then scholarship negotiation. There are many things that can be done to make sure that your final financial aid offer, whether it's need-based or merit-based, is going to be the best that it can be. And then, one thing that really sets me apart from other people in this field is that I help students focus on purpose and growth mindset. These are two extremely positive ways of framing the college admissions process so that it is part of a lifelong process of designing the kind of life that a student really wants. So now keep in mind that all of my students have obtained scholarships ranging from $12,000 to full rides of $276,000. My average scholarship per student has been $80,000. And for families that are not looking for scholarships, the same techniques that are used to obtain scholarships are also used to optimize admission results. So given the quantitative results that we've had with students, my fees are paid for many times over. So for this particular package, it is $8,997. And again, whether you start in 11th grade or 12th grade, it's the same process. So the cost is the same. And as the students I've worked with have obtained scholarships beginning at $12,000. As you can see, these fees are paid for many times over because the average scholarship is $80,000. In addition, if you sign up today for a 30-minute one-on-one free strategy session, you will also get, by virtue of signing up for that, you will also get $500 off of this package. So this is one of the two packages I have for 11th and 12th grade students. The second one is basically the same thing, except in addition to all of the things I just outlined, students receive unlimited meetings, a full 18-hour test prep package for the SAT or ACT, so all of the tutoring and test prep is included, and 5 additional applications. So the other package was 10 colleges, this one is 15. And I've had students apply to 6 colleges, I've had students apply to 25 colleges. It really depends, average is 8 to 10, but especially if there are outside interests, things like the arts or research or something like that, there are students who apply to closer to 15. So that one costs $12,697. If there is any learning difference, then we have to add on a cost for a specialized tutor, but normally that's the cost. And the breakdown is as follows. And then you save by purchasing this package as opposed to getting all this stuff a la carte, you save $674. Plus, if you sign up today, it's the same thing, $500 discount. If you sign up today for a 30-minute free one-on-one strategy session where you can ask all the questions and your concerns to see also how I might be able to help. Now, I did want to mention, because there are some younger students, that 9th and 10th grade students, I do work with those students to prepare them, and I'm not going to go through step by step, but to prepare them to be in a great position the summer between junior and senior year when it comes time to apply. And really, it's all the aspects that we talked about, but in addition, there's just more time to be able to help with those choices of extracurriculars, the summers, summer planning, whether it's courses, internships, mentorships. There are many creative ways of helping students explore their talents and showcase their accomplishments. So this is what I work on. That's what Talent Development 3D is all about. This is a proprietary process that I use. And I would be very happy to explain more about that. And this one is a yearly cost of $19.97 paid through 10th grade, so it would be yearly, and then at 11th grade the other one kicks in. So that kind of is the overview. Now, before please remember to sign up. The link is in the chat. Now, before I give you the final overview of the tips, and this is not going to just be a rehash, I'm going to give you some new tips, so stick around. Before we do that, I would like to look at the Q&A to be able to address some of the questions. So just give me one moment and I will see. Okay, very good. So Mario, what is there are a myriad of scholarship pages, correct? What is the best strategy to find scholarships relevant to me? Yes. So I have one kind of basic answer to this, which is be very careful. The first step is going to be to get your college list, because once you have your college list, you'll be able to find out, do those colleges deduct the outside third-party scholarships from your financial aid package that they offer you, or are you going to be able to add them? Because many colleges, what they'll do is if they offer you any kind of financial aid, whether it's need-based, based on income, or merit-based, based on academic performance, but also based on talents, outside talents, sometimes the colleges will, they won't add your scholarship. They'll deduct the amount that they're giving you by the scholarship amount that you've gotten from a third party. So I would say that's the first thing, is be sure, because really the focus for scholarships should be the institution itself, the college itself. Explore that before you start looking at the third party. Now, if you do come up with a third party option, which is that the colleges are allowing you to do that before they deduct, then you go to a site like FastWeb, and then it's less important. The site is less important, go by the reviews, that kind of thing. And then just go for it, because a lot can be done. I hope that's been helpful. So now Martha, grade 11, how do we find the best universities for our daughter's interest? National security. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by national security and how that, oh, that's your daughter's interest. I see. Okay. So, yes, so the best universities per interest, there are a lot of different ways to do that. There are many lists available online. There are lists that are compiled by third parties. Be sure that you check the third party and where they're getting this list, because anyone can create a list. I would recommend you cross-reference several lists that you can do. The other option is, of course, to work with an expert who has experience in this field and who is able to guide you in that direction. I would look very strongly also at the size of the department. So look in those college lists, look at the size of the department to make sure there's enough faculty, that kind of thing. Okay, so, and again, please, if I haven't fully answered your question, do sign up, because I'd be happy to meet with you for those 30 minutes, and that will even open up that discount to you later on if you decide to work with me. Madison, you're a junior. Okay, your very first step in the college admissions, and should I find the dates for early admission to your top school? Okay, so that, I'm very glad that you're looking at this process now, Madison, and you're not waiting until next year. That will help. So the most important thing, the first step, is really going to be what lights you up, what are you really good at, what kinds of things would you like to explore in college? And so an interest and strengths assessment is a wonderful way to get started. There are many out there. I have one that I work with and that I recommend. So if you want to find out more about that, please be in touch with me. But I would start there. And yes, you can create a timeline, a personalized timeline, which I do for all my students, by looking at the steps that I outlined in my packages, and trying to figure out how much time you're going to need for each of those aspects. And again, if you need me to send you anything, be in touch with me and I'll be happy to do that. Okay, does a year of community college help with entrance into college? Transferring, now I don't know whether you're thinking about starting with community college and then transferring, but that could be, it could be very helpful. Sometimes transferring into a school is actually easier than applying as a freshman. So that can be an option, but it has to be really fine-tuned to your needs, your goals, whether financial considerations are part of this. So, I can't spend too much time right now, but I will be happy to connect with you outside, offline, and answer more about this. Okay, 3 safety, 3 reach, 3 target. So my recommendation is always to have a base. First of all, there's no such thing as safety anymore. Look up Tufts syndrome. It's a thing. Colleges sometimes do not admit students who are extremely likely to be admitted because they think it's not their top choice. So there's really no such thing anymore as a safety school. There are probabilities. So my recommendation is 3 likely admits, 3 target admits, and beyond that, whatever amount of reaches you want, or more targets or more likelies, but a base of 3 likelies and 3 targets. Now the question is, how do you define what those likelies and targets are? And that's where the art of college list building comes in, because it's not just about looking at databases and saying, trying to get an algorithm of, and people have tried to do this. In fact, there's some people that say that they can predict, but that is not my experience. There is a question of, what kind of a sixth sense about which is born out of experience. So again, here an expert can help. Reach out to me, even if you don't work with me, reach out to me, and I'll see if I can help in any way. Okay, Lisa, how important is 12th grade rigor? Let's see, if yes, is it beneficial to, yeah. So the question is, 12th grade can be a very stressful time because especially if a student is trying to do applications and, classes at the same time. Now, the rigor is a very important part of the admissions process. There is no doubt about it. But, we have to prioritize the well-being of our kids, of our students, because otherwise it truly it truly is very short-sighted. So I always recommend to parents and to students that you think about what is doable in a way that will enhance well-being. Yes, I can list you the top criteria. They include rigor, they include great GPA, they include these things. But it all has to be a balancing act because remember, college is not a destination, it is one step in designing a life of purpose. Okay, financial aid and what classes to take in order to boost applications. So, boost applications, what you want, again, it's what I just talked about. It's a balance between rigor, GPA, and passion for the class. Because there is, I have had students who had slightly lower grades, like Ellen's story that I gave you. They had slightly lower grades, but they progressed, they took rigorous classes, it's not about kind of A for effort, but it's actually showing some progress. However, the financial aid, it says you're asking what classes to take in order to boost applications. The same type of approach that will help enhance admission results will help with financial aid that is based on merit. Now, if it's straight based on your financial needs, so income, then it's slightly different. However, there is a misconception that there are two buckets: financial aid based on merit and financial aid based on need. This is not true. If a college wants to admit a student, they will call that grant whatever they want. They will call it, they'll invent a scholarship to attract the student. So your job is to make your applications as attractive as possible. And one of those aspects is choosing classes carefully. Okay, how do I figure out what I want to do? Very good question. So these interest and strength assessment can be very helpful in that process. Also shadowing, and I don't know if the person who asked this question, because it was anonymous, it said that, are you in 9th grade? Are you in 10th grade? The strategy will be different depending on which year you're in. If you're at the end of the process and you still don't know, then you might want to take a gap year. The idea is not only to take these assessments, but then also to go out into the real world and do, shadow, do internships, explore, because that's the best way, is to get that feedback from the real world as opposed to just staying with the results of an assessment. Also, again, if you decide to work with me, I have a lot of experience with students, so I kind of get a sense of what might be a field that could be of interest. And trying to think outside the box, how to combine your interests in a field that would be exciting. Okay, when should you start applying for scholarships? How do you determine which ones are best? So now the scholarships, again, I answered this partly, is you want to focus on the scholarships that are part of each college. So the first step is getting that college list and seeing which kinds of scholarships are available. Also enhancing the quality of the applications, because that is going to yield scholarships. They may not be called scholarships. They'll be called grants. They'll be called merit aid. There's all sorts of ways that it's going to be called, but that's a very powerful way to do that. Now, if you're going to apply, so the scholarships are part of the regular application cycle. So, summer through late fall of senior year is when you're going to set those applications for scholarships. If you're going to do third-party scholarships, like a company that offers $2,500 to a student because they fall into a certain category, you can start to do that also in the fall, but there is a lot more flexibility there because there are even third-party scholarships that run through the spring of senior year. So there are a lot of options there. But don't waste your time if the colleges are just going to deduct those third-party scholarships out of their grants. First, one thing at a time, basically. If you are a good student that is likely to get into a school but not assured, won't applying early perhaps get you a fast no, and then later they'll fill spots with less qualified candidates? Okay, so you're trying to be very strategic, and I applaud strategy. Strategy is a good thing. But there are only certain schools where an early action, which is non-binding, is not a good idea. If you're out of state and you're applying to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, it is more to your advantage to be part of the regular decision pool if you're out of state. However, if you are applying early decision and you know that the school is your first choice, there are many cases when that will enhance the chance of admission. So I wouldn't get too stuck in the weeds, although, again, working with somebody who is very familiar with these subtleties can help in a few cases. For the most part, early decision does boost a student's chance, although it usually is not as much as the students think, because early decision is usually, a lot of that class is reserved for athletic recruits and for the private schools to legacies. So it's not quite the way it looks, but it is a good question. Okay, do think strategically. All right, what is early admission and early decision? Yes. So early decision is binding. You have to go to the school if they admit you. Early action generally is non-binding unless it's restricted early action. Then it's like early decision pretty much. So how many colleges you can only apply to one school early decision or restrictive early action. So it has to be at the top of the student's list. And also the parents have to be okay with paying whatever price, is offered, because usually early decision, the offers might be less for the, it's harder to negotiate with early decision because basically you've committed that you're going to apply. Early action is non-binding, so that works. That's much more flexible. Okay. Yes, how do I start applying for scholarships in 11th grade? No, we don't apply for scholarships in 11th grade. That's not how it's going to work. I mean, there are third-party scholarships you could apply to in 11th grade, but I think it's a waste of time until you have a college list, until you have the scores, until you know where you stand. There's plenty of time later. Okay, what would you recommend as a current 10th grader in an IB high school? What would you recommend me start doing now? Yes. There are, yes, Savannah, just before I get to that, Savannah's interest and strengths assessments. You can book a session with me. I can tell you, by signing up, I can, tell you what I use, etc. There are many out there. You can actually Google them, but the one that I use, I feel very confident about. So I'd be happy to share that with you if we meet. And so your question, recommend me to start doing now as a 10th grader in an IB high school. Now, I assume your question, Stacy, is about a combination of academics and extracurriculars. It's really, really hard for me to answer this question without knowing you. So, in a question like this, I highly recommend that you sign up to meet with me for the free 30-minute session, because I can't tell you that there is no formula. This is very personalized. I really want to know more about you before I can recommend extracurricular activities and academic courses that will really enhance your chances of admission. Can you explain in detail what a portfolio is? So a portfolio can be for an artist, it can be for an activist, a community activist, it can be in any field that you're active in as a student outside of classes. you can showcase your accomplishments. So it can be through videos, it can be through still photographs and a little blurb. There are many different ways. You can create a personal website. There are so many different things you can do to showcase your accomplishments. And you can be very creative about it. So there's a lot that can be done in that direction. So when a student is undecided, what are your recommendations on scholarships and applications? So yes, that's a good question. Undecided can be a great way for students to start out their college experience. It is important, though, to weave together potential interests. So the same thing that I said in this talk about how to weave together different interests and accomplishments for a student who knows what they want to major in, the same would apply to an undecided student. However, for that undecided student, it might be, scenario one, double majoring in these things. Scenario two, majoring and minoring. Scenario three, creating your own major, So think outside the box and talk about those interests in a way that connect together and that show something about where the student might be headed, even though they're not sure yet. So what should I do if I can't find many extracurricular activities related to my interests to make me stand out? Okay, so that is a good question. There are always ways to do this. It is about creativity and thinking outside the box. Now, I know that doesn't answer your question, but again, here is an example of a situation where this has got to be super personalized, right? So a student, for example, who is fascinated with origami, just to pull something out of the hat, right? And you'd think, oh my gosh, how am I going to write about that in an essay? Or how am I going to, how am I going to develop my strengths? Well, I don't know. That student might end up teaching origami as a volunteer activity in a local school or online if something in person is not available. And then read books about, I don't know, something like the philosophy of origami, and then kind of tie everything together. There are a lot of creative ways to do this. So even though I can't answer your question, I'd be happy to, if you want to connect with me through the 30-minute session. Okay, elaborate on the 50th percentile. Well, the 50th percentile is just the middle 50% of students admitted in previous years who have scored within a certain range. So each school will have their own 50th percentile. And it's one aspect of strategy, but it's not the only one, as I said in my talk. You can look that up. It's very easily available, but don't be fooled to think, oh, well, I'll just choose the schools based on that. There's a lot more that goes into it, again, as I outlined previously. How to improve writing for college essays. The best way to improve writing is reading. So I don't know, because the question was anonymous, what grade you're in. The earlier you start, the more chances you have of reading. But it's not reading any old thing. It's reading material that is going to not only be interesting to you, so develop your own reading list, but also material that is going to give you models and help you learn by osmosis, by reading great writing. So pick fiction and nonfiction that is highly rated, look at the Pulitzer Prizes and etc., other things like that, to learn what good writing really is. Now, in the short term, how to improve writing, there are many tips. I guide students through a 10-step process to write their college essay, the main essay, and there are numerous ways. I'd have to give a whole talk on writing tips to be able to really answer your question, but again, I'm very, very happy to be able to help you later if you need that. Okay, finding and applying for scholarships, that was the same question as before. Be sure that you do your college list before and then go to FastWeb or one of those compare them. The third-party scholarships, again, be careful not to waste your time on that until you know if your colleges are going to honor those scholarships or are going to deduct from their own offer. So do either of the tests hold more weight in applications? No. ACT, SAT, totally equivalent in terms of how it impacts admission. However, it's not the same test, so it's very important to pick the test wisely. That's why I offer the ACT versus SAT diagnostic, because they are very different tests, and they kind of prioritize different strengths. Okay, how do I improve standardized testing? So you can do it by, with something free like Khan Academy. You can get a tutor the way I recommended. I match students to tutors who have extreme amount of experience and who are very friendly and personable. That can help a lot. So there are many, many different ways. And the important thing is to identify what is it that's holding you back. What is holding you back from achieving a higher test score, if that's really going to be part of your application strategy? And then addressing whatever it is that's holding you back. If it's test taking strategy, if it's the content that needs to be reviewed. So that's all can be very helpful. That was for Onoi. Now, Jennifer, if your student scores well on both the SAT and ACT, should you submit both scores? There's no need to submit both scores. It's absolutely useless. If they're scoring very well on both, pick one and optimize that one. Yes, in terms of dream schools and safe schools, what would be a good balance when applying? Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with a dream school. However, and people think into those terms, there's nothing wrong with that. However, when you start to get too focused on the dream school, it's wise to counterbalance that with remembering that college is one step in building a life of purpose. It's not a destination. Now, when you're talking about college list balance between what I would call reach schools or far reach schools and then likely schools, the balance I already told you, I believe that 3 likely, 3 target, and then the rest, combination of whatever you want, is a good way to start. But don't assume, again, likely and target, it's not just out of a database. It requires understanding of how this system actually works and what the colleges are looking for. What if you just need scholarship help? Well, if you just need scholarship help, then the question is this is for Jennifer, is it scholarships, third-party scholarships are you talking about, or are you talking about the scholarship essays for the colleges? So in both cases, generally speaking, they require essays. And, if you're interested in connecting with me, I can certainly put together a customized package for just scholarship essays. That can work, absolutely. So do we have to do the lesson or meeting that we get to get a discount? We have to? No. There's no obligation. I'm offering you the discount if you sign up for the 30-minute session, but there's no obligation to get anything. This is an opportunity for you to ask questions, for you to see how I might be able to help, and then to decide, do you want to move ahead with that? Okay. Is there anywhere we can take the test, your interest and strengths assessment, for free? Now, there are free tests, Trinity. There are free tests. The one that I use is not free. You can find the list of these tests and reviews and all of that. You can find them online. I prefer this test. It's not terribly expensive, but I'd be very happy again to share that information with you going forward if you want to connect with me offline. Okay, so does dual enrollment help with entrance into college? Dual enrollment can show rigor. So the question is, if you have the option for AP classes or dual enrollment, which do you do? Well, that's, sometimes that's an interesting question. I would have to say that's on a case-by-case basis. But anything that shows rigor is going to be beneficial, absolutely. Now, some colleges will not honor the credit for dual enrollment, just so you know. If it's a local community college, you have to check with the colleges you're interested to see if they will actually honor that. Okay, going into 12th grade, I'm wondering what are a few things I should really focus on? Are good college essays more important than an early application? Are AP classes actually that important? Yeah. So early, if you're in 12th grade, I wouldn't start thinking about sending things in early. I would focus on the quality of your applications. That's going to be the most important thing at this point. Absolutely focus on the highest quality essays that you could possibly do and on showcasing your accomplishments in the most compelling way possible. And that includes things like, videos and personal websites, but there are also sites that you can use to showcase your accomplishments that are free. Things like Circled In, check it out. It's a good resource. Yeah, and then our AP actually that important. AP classes demonstrate rigor. So again, you want to balance well-being with rigor because rigor is one of the most important aspects of the admissions list of criteria. I keep hearing not to mention COVID in essays, applications, any way to explain a 2020 decline due to virtual classroom. I disagree with this whole idea of not mention. This has been our lives. This has impacted, COVID has impacted everyone in some way. And I think it's very important to tell your story and to be honest. So I do not adhere to that. I believe that as long as you're not making excuses, as long as, you're giving a credible explanation, that can be useful. There are several sections where you can get that done. When do you recommend starting sending applications to colleges? It can be as early as beginning of August, depending on what phase you're in, but it can also be the night before the deadline. You have to start where you are. Don't worry about that. I have given you some optimized solutions, but there are many ways to get to where you want to go. So don't worry about it. 4 years of one extracurricular or multiple extracurricular. Go deep, not wide. Really important. Do some extracurriculars to the depth and breadth in that one extracurricular or 2 or 3 that you possibly can. And much better than 10 different things at a very superficial level. What is the best way to select a major in order to pursue a vet school? So this is a whole different topic because, applying to these schools, there are requirements for med school and vet school, but there's also a lot of flexibility in major. So this would have to be a very personal conversation that I'd have with you about, your strengths, and how that would play out, because for vet school and for med school, it's how you perform in college that's going to matter. So the choice of the colleges, the choice of the major, all of that's going to be super important. Also the choice of volunteer and extracurricular activities in college. So those are important. So how do you go about looking into colleges going into senior year? Yes. So I have a certain process that I use with students, which starts with me recommending about 20 colleges for them to research. I give a 3-step process for students to research colleges with a spreadsheet, etc. Of course, you can do this on your own if you want, but it's hard to narrow things down. So we start with this 20 college long list, and then we go to a short list, and then we go to the applying list. So, if you're able to do that on your own, absolutely, there are some databases you can use, like the NCES database, to narrow down based on preferences. That can be an option. Or you can work with someone like me who can already whittle that down and be sure that the fit is right, because that's going to be super important. Okay. How are AP classes versus intensive classes? Yes, so intent, every school is going to, Savannah, every school is going to have a different way of saying, some schools are going to call it honors, others are going to be intensive, and others it's going to be, I don't know, English plus, there are all sorts of different ways. So the important thing there is to be sure that your high school explains in the high school profile what these different sections mean, what these different terms mean, so that the colleges know how to evaluate, because they may not know. Now, if your high school has a really strong connection with colleges, in the sense that many students have been admitted to the schools you're interested in from your school previous years, that's not going to be so important. But if you're coming from a small school, or if you're homeschooled, that's going to be a whole different thing, and you have to be very sure that the high school is communicating. Again, when you're evaluating AP versus intensive, you want to look at rigor, right? So I would have to see what the difference is to be able to answer that question exactly, but I hope you understand the gist of this. Okay, and then last question before we finish with the top tips. How important are leadership positions in extracurricular activities? Is it a must to have a leadership role? Okay, that's really an important question. So colleges are looking for students who are going to make an impact, who are going to make an impact in the college, on the college campus, who are going to make an impact after they graduate. One of the ways they measure that ability is by kind of extrapolating or imagining from the high school experience, is this student likely to make some kind of an impact? Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be leadership. Traditionally, leadership is one very easy way to demonstrate this, but not all students, first of all, not all students are have the personality for that. And there are many other ways to make an impact, right? So a student who's more introverted may make an impact in other ways, may do fundraising, or may do participate in a way that's team. So you can emphasize team collaboration rather than leadership. So don't feel that you have to. If it really goes against the grain, if you can, all it is, it's a convenient way for colleges. You're making it easier for them, because that's an easier way for them to evaluate whether going forward, there's going to be an impact. But having said that, also you can be creative. It doesn't have to be the traditional leadership roles. Okay, very good. So I'm glad you've stuck with me. Most of you are still here, which is fantastic. And I would like just to reiterate, yes, Grace just posted, don't forget to sign up for the strategy session, absolutely. And I'll be happy to answer your questions then. So what is it, what is it that we're really, really looking for when we're looking at the college admissions process in terms of tips? So here are a couple of do's and don'ts. So the main thing that you don't want to do, whether you're a parent of a senior, a junior, or anywhere in between, is don't do this, okay? Don't think about it tomorrow, okay? Don't put it off. For those of you who don't know, and usually students don't know this image, this is Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. So one of her famous phrases was, "I'll think about it tomorrow." Don't do that. So what you do want to do is also be sure not to buy into myths. So this is one very common myth. My children or I need to get into a top 10 or 100 ranked school to be successful in life, okay? If they don't get into X school, their lives will be ruined. Or if I don't get into X school, my life will be ruined. If I don't become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, I will be poor. Okay, now I'm not going to be able to see your answers, but think about whether you think these things are true or not. In fact, they are all false, and let me tell you why. It's not my opinion that they're all false. It's not my personal opinion. It's because studies have shown that there are some factors, there are in fact a few factors that are predictive, that predict success in college and beyond. By success, I mean financial stability and doing the kind of job that you want. One of those is being closely mentored by professors in college. So whatever you do, find mentors when you get to college, and engaging with the college community in an active way. So become an active part of that community of the college that you end up at, because that fosters a sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging has been linked in these studies to an increase in GPA. So this is not just, qualitative. This has actually been measured in terms of results with GPA. Now, to these two factors, I've added choose work that's in line with 21st century job skills. You can look this up through the World Economic Fund, World Economic Forum, and the McKinsey report. And at another time, I can do a talk about that. What are the 21st century job skills? They're not the ones we think of necessarily. We're not just talking about doctors, lawyers, or engineers. There's a lot of other options out there where, in the age of automation, you will be able to have an impact on your team that you work with and on society as a whole. And then finally, focusing on growth mindset, the joy of mastery, and purpose. Now, these are all very positive ways of framing experience. When you're working on your extracurriculars, look at the joy of doing that and see how it fits in to your larger life goals and aspirations. So, a few more tips. Focus on fit over rank. Okay, the fit of the college, perfect match colleges is what we want. Rank is great, and that can be one aspect of one piece in the puzzle, but don't just focus on that. Reframe, as I've said many times in this talk, the college application process as one step in designing a life of purpose. Really look into what growth mindset is. It's such a useful tool that can help you through this process, but also beyond in college and even in the work world. The timeline, yes, it's better when applications open, but as we've seen with a few questions, there are other ways of doing this that are equally helpful, especially if you're in 12th grade. So don't get too hung up on that. Also, for parents and for students, if you don't know what you want, if you don't know what you want, you're undecided, be okay with that, because you can take steps even now to help find out what your passions are. And there are kids who are Renaissance kids, so who are really have multiple interests, and the question sometimes is, well, how do I connect these interests? Those can make for the most fascinating college essays and for the most fascinating applicants. So there are ways of building on those strengths. And then application strategy, make sure it's in line, as I said in the beginning, with who you really are. Because if you tie in the extracurriculars and the career goals together, or in the case of an undecided student or a Renaissance student, how those connections are fascinating, because it can be an intellectual interest. It doesn't have to be a career yet, right? Then those will be organic applications. Self-reflection is a very cool and integral part of this process. So don't skimp on that. And the other tips. Remember that colleges, no matter which college it is, they are concerned with yield. They want to be sure that the students that they admit are actually going to enroll, that they're not going to go to another school instead. So it is to your advantage to show them that you really want to go to the school. And this includes the likely and the target schools. Don't just focus on the reach schools, because as I told you, there's no such thing as safety anymore unless you're enrolling in a community college. Then you can safely say that unless you flunked out of high school, you're going to be able, that's a safety option. But apart from that, really, there are very few true safeties at this point. So how do we do this? While, you want to reconcile your story and your purpose with this strategic enrollment management is the idea of yield and making sure that the students who are admitted, they try to predict, if we admit X student, are they actually going to enroll? So what you want to do is help them do that. How do you help them do that? Clicks. They send you an email, they invite you to a session, attend. Whatever, if that's a school that interests you, don't forget to do that. It's super helpful these days. Clean up your digital footprint. There is, sometimes students, and it's not just about, having a personal account or a private account, because people take screenshots. Sometimes a student will say something in a context, that may seem controversial or hostile in some way, and then taken out of context with a screenshot. There have been cases of students not being admitted to their school. So be sure that you do this. It's very, very important. It's also a way to engage with professors. Document early through videos and photos, and there are many different ways. I mentioned earlier circled in. There are many different ways of showcasing those accomplishments and those strengths. And this was in line with one of the questions. Go deeper, not wider. Help your students. If your parents, strive for mastery, or if you're a student, strive for mastery, the joy of mastery, that enjoyment, rather than ticking off all these boxes and then being exhausted and wondering what it was all for. Focus on the process of these extracurriculars and the growth mindset, which tells us how to cope with setbacks, right? It's super, super important in the college admissions process to understand that whether a college admits you or not is not a reflection on your character. There are so many, or your abilities, there's so many different factors that go into that. And then the other thing is to rely on informed guidance as early as possible. The average number of students to counselors in public high schools is like 455 to 1. How can a counselor who is so overworked be expected to really guide a student through this process? So I do hope that you connect with me, that I get a chance to meet with you, and for us to connect during that strategy session, because really, what is the goal here? Goal here is to discover, help students to discover their talents and to build a joyful, successful life of purpose, and to help students thrive. So I truly hope that I get to learn more about you, your goals, or your children's goals, and that you take advantage of this sign up, so that if you do decide to work with me, you will be able to benefit from the discount for all the packages, because there's a discount on all the packages if you meet with me. Very good. Well, I know that some people put their questions in the chat, and Kathy, I think I addressed. Yeah, so I think most of these have been addressed. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We are a bit over time. Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much for attending. I'm thrilled that we've had this chance to be together. I hope what you have received today has been useful in some way, and I look forward to meeting with you or hearing from you offline. Okay, well, take very good care. Well, you're so welcome. I'm getting some feedback here, so I do appreciate that. And have a wonderful evening, everybody, wherever you are in the country.